Hi everyone, I'm Juji and I'm here with Shira, Lee, and Kim. We are four friends, speakers, and professionals from different cultures, backgrounds, and age groups coming together to offer healing and inspiration. A lot is happening in the world today. It's really hard to know what and who to trust. Well, as it turns out, trust, like everything, is an inside job. After all, you're the only one who can truly know what's true for you. Today, we're discussing how each of us continues to find the strength to trust ourselves and how it's truly a journey and not a destination. Who wants to go first?
I will.
Do it, Lee.
Let's see. Gosh, I loved how you introed that with the fact that trust is a journey and not a destination, because it sure has been for me. And I would imagine for many people. But for me personally, trust has started to unfold more and more as I get older within myself. I've become, more aware of the fact that I need to trust my gut. I look back and I think about all of the phases in my life and the things that I've gone through. And we always can look back and say, oh, I regret this and I regret that. And I really try not to regret anything in my life. I believe there have been amazing lessons to be learned from things that happen to us. But the one thing I do know is that at certain times in my life, when things did not go right, I didn't trust my gut. And that for me is a big lesson with trust. And I am more and more now into allowing myself to trust my gut and my own intuition. And so that's been helping a lot as well. I feel like life is so much better when you do trust your gut and your instincts.
I just love that, Lee. I didn't want to interrupt. Did you finish what you were saying?
Yeah.
I so 100% relate to what you're saying, because I can clearly see now how much trust I put in other people, like some predominant people in my life, at my own expense. And I'm curious now about how I allowed that to happen to such a degree. And I think it's really important to sort of go back and see, I always think it's important to go back and see who raised us. How were we raised? Were we raised in an environment of trust? Was it modeled for us to trust ourselves? And I can clearly see the answer is kind of no in that. So I remember thinking to myself, I'm so happy that I trust people, because I don't want to be a mistrusting person. But meanwhile, I didn't trust myself. Like, it's just so crazy when I think back on it, and how the last year or year and a half to two has been an absolute, almost like 180-degree transformation in the world of trust, where I so trust myself now. And I didn't for years and years, that you can just see the delta between the two. And I will say, much rather be here.
Amen to that.
Well, I think that what you said is really important, Shira, to sort of like reverse construct certain like pathologies we have about ourselves. And one of the things about what you just said is, was it modeled for us? Yes, but at the same time, when you're growing up, when you're being parented, when you're going to school, you have authorities over you, right? So father knows best, and listen to your mother. And these are important things in order for them to instill their values in you. But what is that like cutoff point where you're meant to go your own way and you transition from trusting them to trusting what's right for you, instead of going along with all of the values that you were raised with and knowing what's true inside of you? Like, there's no school for that. There's no like date we celebrate when, okay, now it's time for you to transition for trusting what your mother's always told you to yourself. we like celebrate bar and bar mitzvahs and like all these different milestones in our lives, but there's no like concrete time when that transition is supposed to be handed over. And so, yeah, some people trust their parent to make decisions for them until they're no longer available to do that. And then they feel lost. So what could we do in order to teach children that eventually it's going to be their turn to make
oh my God, I'm so sorry, I have to hop in here. I'm listening to what you're saying, and the very last sentence was exactly where I was going to pick up on that, because we can, as parents, allow our children to start trusting themselves from a very young age, right? Because sometimes parents are like, oh yeah, no, you can't wear that, right? As opposed to, do you want to wear this or do you want to wear this? Or what would you like to wear? Or just the smallest of decisions about how to do something, even if a child isn't doing it 100% right. Let's say you're telling them to set the table, or you're giving them a chore, or, how do you like to learn? Some kids like to learn visually. Some kids like to like ask them questions about, so that they get to know themselves. I think that's so critical.
Yeah, and the magic word I think that you said, Juji, is educate. If we are educated, and if these kinds of conversations are brought up, I think at a very, very young age, and it starts to make you think about trusting and about, listening to your own feelings and trusting them, it'll make it okay. You become a little more independent, you feel a little more confident. And yeah, I do think it can start at any age, at birth. At birth.
I want to jump in here with, I remember at 16 and I was in therapy, and thank God somebody helped get me into therapy, because it was exactly what I needed at that age. And I know that a lot of people don't believe in therapy, do believe in therapy. A lot of kids wouldn't even think to go to therapy, whatever. I'm not condoning therapy. It's not about therapy, but it's the talking. So like what you're all saying in the educating, in the conversations, it's the talking, because that was the only person at 16 that I had this person to talk to. I couldn't talk to my parents. I couldn't talk to, I could talk to my siblings, but I think none of us really understood what was going on in my dysfunctional family, because we were all young. And so here I had this stranger to talk to, and it was through that talking that I really learned how easily manipulated I was in making the wrong decisions for myself. And it all stemmed from being little and not getting what I needed, at home and everything, or at school, right? Like just self-love, self-care, learning about yourself, being trusted, like learning that muscle so that you could be confident out in the world, right? But so I just wanted to reiterate how powerful these conversations are for people, because yes, a part of it was with my, ever growing muscle of trust and intuition and listening to my gut. There's a piece that's like, oh, as I'm getting older, it's getting a little easier because I'm more in tune with it. I'm on my journey. I'm practicing. But when I was younger, I didn't know how to do any of that. So talking it through with someone to figure out what's underneath the making wrong decisions or not trusting yourself, what's underneath it is so important.
Let me ask you girls a question. Do you think there's a correlation, because it just dawned on me that there might be a correlation between people pleasing and not trusting ourselves? It's like I'm seeing that that's true on my journey, because when you give your power away, including trust, right? Because when you defer what you want to other people and you start going along with, like Kim, you were saying, making wrong decisions, you're going along with what other people are saying as opposed to really checking in with yourself. To me, I can see how my people pleasing negated my trusting myself. I wasn't doing it consciously. I was just like, wow, I was really giving away a lot of stuff for free.
Shira, I relate to that. You and I have very similar, childhood issues. You know, we've talked about them a lot. So I completely relate to that, but I think it's different for everyone, because I think where some people might be people pleasers, and that stems from, again, old childhood issues, there might be people who are opposite, and maybe they're allowing people to, maybe they're making the wrong decisions out of being rebellious, or, you know, it could be for so many reasons. It might not be just to people please others.
Yeah, I don't necessarily correlate the two. I feel like you can be a people pleaser, maybe trust yourself, and you're just people pleasing because you're nurturing and you love to give and to do. But yeah, I agree with Kim that it really depends on your own situation. But also, to go back to that like childhood thing, you know, for me also personally, all of these things, these lessons were not available really. And it's, you know, and I can't blame my parents. They really didn't know much about that. They were not educated. They came here, they immigrated to the United States. They worked their butts off. You know, they did their best. They did everything they could to give us the best life that they could. But there was a lack of, you know, these life lessons that, you know, today in my life, I see as hugely valuable, like so valuable, you know, to start implementing and teaching to our own kids to talk about stuff. But I think it depends on where we are in life, what culture we come from, the lifestyle we've led, and of course our own journeys. Because so many people have had none of it, but have been able to capture and empower themselves with all of these amazing lessons. You know, yeah.
I want to like separate out two things, because I think what you just said, Lee, is like people pleasing can be like nurturing and loving. Like that's absolutely true. But the thing about what people pleasing is that you're doing it at your own expense.
Yes.
You're nurturing others at your own expense. And so that sort of negates your own trust of what you need. And part of what we're talking about in terms of being raised is that most people learn through mistake making, right? There's a lot of, I mean, I know that I made a lot of mistakes, and that was the only way that I knew how. In fact, I remember telling my mom certain times in my 20s when she was worried about me, like, Mom, it's okay. This is a mistake that I have to make. Like, there is no other way for me to understand this lesson except by making this mistake. And it's when we make children wrong for making mistakes that their trust in themselves is severely diminished, instead of sitting down with them and being like, what lesson can you glean from what just happened? Not to punish them, not to turn away from them, but to like support their development through the mistake making. I know that at the end of the day, I was really allowed to be my expressed self when I was a child. And I felt, and I was constantly asked how I feel, you know, so there was a lot of discussion in my household. And I feel like I'm, you know, I'm a very healthy adult as a result. Probably, that's probably true. I don't know. I feel good.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's amazing that you had that around you with a mom who's a psychologist, and probably really just, you know, wanted to hone in on that for you. And so that's great that you got to actually think about, how do I feel? You know, let me express my feelings. You know, I'd have to think about it for myself, like if I ever was asked that.
I think the other factor that we also have to acknowledge here is that there are so many more outlets for information over the last, whatever, couple of decades, between, you know, internet and just all these channels, all these shows, all these ads, all of these influencers, right? I think especially for young teenage girls and boys, all of this incoming can really, really start to like make our intuition and trusting ourselves like rusty, right? we stop trusting it because there's so much incoming. It's like, oh, well, that person says I should use this product, and this person's saying I should do this for if I want to reach my goals. And those influencers are like making millions of dollars, and I'm just a piece of like, we're not encouraging the honing of trusting ourselves. And so that's on ourselves, that's on our parents, that's on our schools. And so we're all saying the right things, but at the end of the day, you know, we grow up in certain environments, and then we have to do the hard work of like unpacking it as adults, which is fine, because if you get the lesson eventually to trust yourself, then hallelujah. But for some people, it's just a really hard fought journey.
You know, I've been practicing trust a lot lately. I, as you guys know, opened a business 3 years ago, and that, you know, is no longer open at the moment. And I learned so many lessons from that experience. But the biggest one that I'm realizing I learned was that I didn't trust myself, and I constantly looked outside of me to help me make decisions so that I wouldn't look bad, so that I wouldn't, you know, I don't know, just make the wrong choices or make the wrong decisions, whatever it was about. And I'm so aware of it now from having had that experience that now what I've been doing is anytime I want to ask someone something because I want their opinion, or I just want a second eyeball on it or something like that, I'm going out of my way to like confirm to myself with an inner dialogue of like, well, how do I feel about this? Okay, this is how I feel. Now let me go ask someone so I can just see if there's anything I'm missing or that might make it even better or whatever. I recently redid my website, and Juji, I sent her my link. I'll send it to you guys too, but I just said, hey, it's done. I love it. Like, what do you think? And, you know, she had a tiny little inkling of feedback for me, but she loved it too. But it almost means less to me. And I mean this in such a good way. It means less to me what anyone would say, because I know I love it, right? So it's like with each area of my life, not just my website, but like each area of my life, I'm just digging deep, like, you know, into how I feel about it, and trying to get really solid with that before I reach out to people. Because, you know, in life, you'll always reach out to people. You'll always want a second opinion or someone to eyeball something, or you want to know what people think, you know. And I'm just, I don't know, it feels good. You know, it feels good it brings more confidence. That's really what it does, is just makes you feel more confident.
Yeah. And I think that also there's a distinction between, you know, asking for support and asking someone to eyeball a document or your website and whatnot. So there's one thing about like trusting yourself and knowing how you feel, but sometimes we need help. Sometimes we do need support and expertise from others that may bring something to the table that we don't have, or we may see it in a new way.
Yeah. I just have to share a little quickie story that just popped into my head, because as you guys know, I've been newly in the dating world, and a few weeks ago, I met somebody who I was just like completely, I mean, smitten with from like the minute I spoke to them. And then we met, and then a few days went by, and I was like, yeah, something's not right here. And I just cut it off. I was just like, yeah, you're not into it, I'm done. Then I spoke to my daughter, and she was like, Mom, you're nuts. You had one date with the guy. What the hell is wrong with you? And so I was so like hell-bent on my decision. And then I talked to her, and she was like, calm down, simmer down. Like, so I was just like, yeah, you know what? Maybe she's right. Maybe she's right. And I reached back out a couple days later, and I was like, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was this, maybe it was that. Let's reconnect. And we did. And then I was right. Because like a couple more weeks went by, and I'm like, no, your gut was right, Shira. You were right. And that was such an important lesson, because the thing is, it's not tangible. Right? There's a voice inside of ourselves, but we have to hone it. We have to practice it, especially if we haven't been listening or paying attention. So it's like anything. You want to get good at an instrument, you got to practice. You want to learn a new language, you got to practice. Trusting ourselves is a practice, because it's so buried for many of us. And so that was such a nice little aha moment where it's like, you were right.
And like Juju said earlier, it's about making mistakes. That's really, you have to make mistakes to understand how to trust yourself. It comes along with the process, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
Well, guys, I think that's a really good place to wrap it up. If you love our conversations, please click like and subscribe to our channel. Tell a friend, spread the word. Please also let us know if you have any comments, questions, concerns, and if there are any topics you'd like to request in the future. We'll see you soon. Please stay safe.
Hi, everybody.